your man, Louie T. Welcome to the Draft Prospects 101 series, your guide to some of the biggest and hottest names of the 2022 NFL draft class. We are starting with the quarterback position. We always start with the quarterback position, and this year is no different. But what is different about this year's crop of quarterbacks is it isn't as appealing as the last two draft classes. Back in 2020, we found Joe Burrow and spawned Justin Herbert, and Tua Tagovailoa was a part of that group that people were excited about. In 2021, 5 quarterbacks went in the first 15 picks of the draft, including 3 inside the top 10. So the last two draft classes seem to somewhat meet the demand for the quarterback position with hearty supply. I don't know if that's the case in 2022 or not. Maybe one or two of these guys surprise us. We know the draft in itself is an inexact science, but the quarterback position is even more of a crapshoot. So we think we know. We have no idea about these guys, but this doesn't look like the most appealing quarterback draft class from afar. But that said, one of the guys that may hear his name called first in this 2022 NFL draft class of quarterbacks is Pitt quarterback Kenny Pickett. And his ascension in 2021 is the reason that this guy has a chance to be the first quarterback to hear his name called in the upcoming draft. We're going to talk about Kenny Pickett, where he is as a football player, how he got to where he is, where he's going in terms of his upside, and what his comp is right now in the league, or was in the league, I should say. So I'll give you all of these things. We'll get inside of the Kenny Pickett portfolio, if you will. Look at his profile. Talk about the maturation and development of Kenny Pickett. So let's do that. Let's jump into the Draft 101 prospects breakdown of Pitt quarterback Kenny Pickett. And so, as you can see, 6'3", 220 pounds. So that's a really good size for an NFL quarterback. And this is a guy that went back to school for his fifth, and final year at Pitt. And he couldn't have made a better decision. Had he come out the year previous, he's not even a first-round pick. And so going back to school essentially made this guy millions and millions of dollars, but it also made him a better football player. And you'll see that. It'll bear itself out in his numbers, and you'll see the monumental leap that was made. And he's one of the guys that I can truly say you will see tangible evidence of him going back to school and how it benefited him. Let's take a look at Kenny Pickett a little bit closer as we go inside the numbers. So you look at Kenny Pickett, and I want you to look at the first number at the very top, career starts, 49 of them. That's something that, jumps out at you immediately, because in today's NFL, in today's day and age, college football and these quarterbacks transitioning from the collegiate game to the NFL, you're not seeing big numbers like that anymore. These guys are starting for 2 years. They're starting for 1 year, as we saw, with Trey Lance last year, and back to 2019 with Dwayne Haskins, and Mitchell Trubisky, back when he was drafted in 17, was a 1-year starter. So we're seeing guys with fewer and fewer career starts. And, if you're a really good quarterback like Trevor Lawrence, you're starting as a freshman and you're going to do your 3 years of service and you're out. That's as good as it gets in today's college football, essentially with a really good quarterback. Usually you're going to see a guy like Justin Fields starts for about 2 years, gets about 2 years worth of starts under his belt, maybe 26, 28 starts, and that's it. So to see a guy with 49 starts is a huge, robust number. You see his overall record in those 49 starts, 32-17. So Kenny Pickett is a winner. You like to see that as well. But when you look at his numbers, you start at the bottom. I like to work my way up. You see in 2017, not a ton of starts, not a ton of games played in. So you kind of disregard that first year, kind of getting his feet wet. College football is brand new to him. Making that leap from high school to college, not a big deal. But you go to 2018, and then you see a full season, a full plate there to kind of devour. 14 games, 58% completion percentage. Ouch. But that's what you expect from a guy that's really making his first, real true start in college football. His first full season, not a lot of yards there. You can see he was, they were protecting him. They ran the football. So, not a lot of production. 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, only 6 yards per attempt. So not a lot there, not a lot to chew on, that the 18 season. You go to 19, another full plate there, 12 starts. You see the completion percentage get up over 60, so that's an improvement in itself. You see the yards go way up. Okay, so you literally jump 1,000 yards essentially to 3,000. The yards per completion don't really, go all that far up, and neither do the touchdowns and the interceptions go up. So you can see more attempts, 469, way more than any of in his career at that time. So he was starting to, kind of settle in as a collegiate quarterback. 2020 was rough on everybody. It was COVID. There was a lot of uncertainty. That's no different for a guy like Kenny Pickett. Only 9 starts. He did have an ankle injury, which reduced him because, everybody's schedule was haywire. So some teams played 13 games. Some teams played 10. Some teams played 8, 6. So the 9 is a significant number because that was out of 11 games. He had an ankle injury that kept him out of 2 games, including one against Notre Dame. But as you can see, solid performance. The completion percentage right in the same area, 61%, still rather low. Especially for today's college football, where you see all these dink and dunk short passes to, get the ball into your playmakers' hands. Completion percentages are through the roof in the college game. And now guys are more so closer to 70% than they are 60. So to still see him hovering around 60 this late in his collegiate career, that's a little alarming. Obviously, the passing numbers come down, not as many starts or attempts. But you do see the yards per attempt start to climb, and that's a good omen. It's up over 7 yards, so that's a lot better. But the touchdowns still don't wow you. They're still in the same place. It's almost like they're running on a hamster wheel, and the interceptions are right there behind them. We're sitting essentially at a 1-to-1 ratio right now, interceptions to touchdown, or touchdowns to interceptions. More like 1.3 to 1, but it's still not what you're looking for, right? You're looking for a big discrepancy between your touchdowns and your interceptions. You just don't have that. So he decides to come back to school for 1 more year. And the NCAA pretty much said, even if you don't have a hardship or, with that COVID-19 situation in 2020, it was rough on everybody. If you want to come back, you can. Kenny Pickett took advantage of that. And he had a redshirt year anyway, so he could have come back. But he decided to come back, and it was the best thing he could have done. Good thing he did not come out of the into the NFL after that junior season, or he would not have been drafted very highly. I don't think he would have gone in the first 2 days. I think he would have been a day 3 type of pick. Just looking at the tape and the numbers. He went back to school though, and he had this continuity with his offensive coordinator, Mark Whipple, and you saw the end result of that in 2021. It all kind of culminated in him just exploding. Was a Heisman Trophy candidate. You see 13 starts, led Pitt finally to an ACC championship. They defeated Wake Forest. So that was one of his goals coming back to school, was to lead them to an ACC championship. He was able to do that. The 497 attempts, almost 500 attempts, by far and away the largest of his career. Also the completions, way up. Also the largest in his career. He had never hit 300 completion in a season. He eclipsed that by 34. So the biggest number here for me is the completion percentage, because that number shot up to 67.2, and that's huge for him because this is a guy that was swimming and hovering around 60. That's never where you want to be. I told you in college football, really in the NFL, but in college in particular, you need to be somewhere sniffing around 70. So that 67.2% is a lot higher and a lot better off, and really where he needs to be. The 4,300 yards passing is astronomical, especially in comparison to where he was throughout his career. The guy only eclipsed 3,000 yards once and that was barely, 3,098 yards. So to jump all the way to 4,300 yards, massive jump. And then the yards per attempt, do you see that? 8.7 yards per attempt. That is a massive leap, and that is a tremendous number. So it shows he's not just dinking and dunking this thing. He's pushing it down the field, and he's getting some chunk plays intermingled with some of the underneath short throws that you tend to see quarterbacks complete at any level. So that number is substantially greater as well. But, the one that just is eye-popping is the touchdown to interception ratio, and just how he dwarfs his previous 4 years combined in one season. All right. Coming into the year, he had 39 career passing touchdowns. He has 42 in his final season at Pitt, which is just remarkable. The 7 interceptions was the lowest since his second year at Pitt in 2018. And again, you're talking 6-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio in 2021. It's just a remarkable feat by Kenny Pickett. And again, when you look at, the total body of work, guy played in 52 games, started 49 of them. And you just saw the continued growth and maturation, and it all culminated in that 2021 season. Now, you could look at it one of two ways. We'll discuss that a little bit later on in this breakdown. But what you can't take away from him is that he grew as a football player. He grew as a quarterback. And if that's something that's sustainable, that 2021 performance, if that's sustainable, this is a guy that could turn out to be one of the better quarterbacks, not just in this draft class, but in the NFL, as we now take a look at Kenny Pickett and his pros. So when you see Kenny Pickett, these are the things that, to me, are obvious. Quality NFL size at 6'3", 220, that checks off that box right there. Adequate NFL arm talent. Look, his arm isn't the biggest. I'd liken his arm to that of Joe Burrow. Burrow didn't have the biggest arm coming out of LSU, but he anticipated, he knew where to go with the football, and he could make every throw on the football field. Again, he didn't have a Joe Flacco rifle shot. He doesn't have a Justin Herbert or a Patrick Mahomes rope or a Josh Allen rope, right? But he can get the football where it needs to go, okay? Good athleticism and mobility. This is something that I think is underrated with Kenny Pickett. If you watch him, you can't help but notice that this guy is a tremendous athlete. And if he runs, and these quarterbacks, they don't have to run the 40. That's not an obligation. No one really cares how fast you run in a straight line. It's good to know, but at the end of the day, if he doesn't run a 40, it doesn't make one bit of a difference. No one's going to push him down a draft board or push him up because he runs a 4.6. But I'm telling you, if Kenny Pickett runs a 40, it's going to be in the 4.6s. He's really, really fast, and he is a better athlete than I think people give him credit for. We all know about the fake slide against Wake Forest in the ACC championship game. There's been a lot of discussion about that play. No one likes it because it's everything that you hate about, protecting quarterbacks and them having the distinct advantage of, not sliding or sliding. And then you got to hold up. And then when you pull up, this guy fakes you. So there was a lot on that play. But that play was, again, about, everyone's going to focus on not sliding. But he had wheels on that play. Okay. And when you watch him, he's a guy that can extend plays with his legs, get, the necessary yardage to move the sticks with his legs if necessary, if things break down or he doesn't like what he sees. He's got toughness, man. This guy's tough as nails. He's one of those guys that plays with a chip on his shoulder, with an edge. I always like to call guys like him playing with reckless abandon, but it's controlled chaos because you got to know when to take those risks and you got to know when to pull back. In the first quarter of a game, 3rd and 4, I don't need you diving for the sticks, and putting yourself at risk. Whereas, in the fourth quarter, in that same down and distance, 3rd and 4, late in the game, we're either up and we're trying to preserve the lead, or we're down and we're trying to get a first down to keep the drive alive. I need you to understand, game situation. And he's the guy that he just lays it on the line. He understands that his team needs him. And if he's got to lower his shoulder, he'll lower his shoulder. If he's got to dive, he'll dive. This is a guy that, hurt his ankle. I talked about it in 2020. Could barely, walk during the week and then played in a football game, and finished up the rest of the season and played damn well, So this guy's got toughness. That's one thing Kenny Pickett definitely has. Has experience under center. Now, look, he's more of a gun guy, as most college quarterbacks are. It's rare to see, college quarterbacks running a pro style offense, under center constantly, play action fake, turning your back to the defense consistently. You don't see that in college football a lot. You don't see, normal pass blocking schemes. You see a lot of craziness going on up front with offensive linemen, tackles pulling and sift blocking to the other side of the formation. You see a lot of tomfoolery, but he did have some under center snaps. So it won't be foreign to him. A guy like Kyler Murray, for instance, they even had their victory formation in shotgun because that's just what they were comfortable doing. They don't take snaps under center all that often. So, he's got experience under center, not like some of these other quarterbacks that are strictly in the gun or in the pistol. He's got experience under center. He's a playmaker. So the thing I love about Kenny Pickett, one of my favorite attributes, is his ability to create off schedule. He's a guy that is going to run around and extend plays, look for guys down the field. A lot of times when he runs to his right and escapes to his right and vacates to his right, he's looking to throw. When he vacates and escapes to his left, he's looking to run. So that's something else that he'll need to clean up, because if that's a tendency, what teams will do is they'll blitz him from his right side, force him to his left, and then they'll have a defender waiting on him because they know he's not really looking to throw it when he's flush to his left. So that's something that he'll have to balance out. But that said, this guy can extend plays. He can make things happen with his legs. If need be, he can make things happen with his arms after using his legs. So to me, Kenny Pickett is a playmaker. Process and progress. To me, Kenny Pickett can go through his reads and progressions, process what he sees, get the football where it needs to go. Now, you can argue that some of that comfortability for him stemmed from being in the same offensive scheme with his offensive coordinator, Mark Whipple, who just got the job in Nebraska, at Nebraska to be their head man. You could argue that he was comfortable because of being in the same system for 3 years straight. Or he's just a guy that understands defenses and knows where to go with the football. Either way, I thought he showed the ability to process and go through his progressions. 2021 explosion. I talked about the numbers and the jump that we saw from him in 2021. Those are phenomenal numbers. Again, if they're sustainable, if this is what he can be at his peak, then he's a guy that could flourish at the NFL level. He showed a lot of what's going to ultimately make him one of the prized possessions at the quarterback position in this draft in 2021. And again, without that season, we're not having this discussion about Kenny Pickett being a top quarterback in any draft, let alone this one. And then starting experience. You look at Kenny Pickett's 49 starts, in 52 games. You just don't see that. The more starts, the better. The more experience a guy gets, the more he sees defenses, the more he understands the game, and it slows down for him. So the experience is a huge plus. You just don't get that a lot of times anymore. So that's a huge plus in that department. You go to the cons of Kenny Pickett, and for me, it's inconsistent accuracy. So we saw the completion percentage throughout his career. We saw that it wasn't great. It did take a monumental step forward in 2021, getting up to 67%. However, that 61% is more of a representation of what he's been in his career. And to me, when I look at Kenny Pickett, I see accuracy. I see down the field accuracy. I see intermediate accuracy. I think in the short game, I think he struggles a bit. I think he struggles with touch. I think he struggles throwing to the far hashes at times with accuracy there. Underneath, I like his deep ball. I like the touch and the air that he puts under it. I like his decisiveness in throwing in the intermediate windows. I do think that there are times where his balls are behind his receivers. They have to adjust to make a catch. They can't run after the catch. I do think that on the shorter passes, he lacks touch, screen plays and things of that nature where you just need to lay it out there for your guy. I think he throws a firm bullet too often there. That's easy to set up for a pick. When you zing it in there, when a guy's not that far away from you, skip off his hands right into the waiting arms of a defender. So I think he could be a little bit more accurate. And then down the field, sometimes his balls are underthrown. I think he throws a beautiful deep ball over the middle of the football field, but when you get him throwing to the outside the numbers, I think sometimes his deep balls don't quite get there in the timing you would like them to. Takes too many sacks. I think this is the biggest knock on him right now for me, is that he just takes way too many sacks. And it's a double-edged sword, really, the taking too many sacks, because on one hand, he's taking sacks because he doesn't like what he sees, or he's confused, the defense got him on that particular snap, or there's just pressure. But on the other hand, you could have him try to force something and throw an interception, and you would much rather him take the sack, and if you got to punt, you punt the football versus throwing the ball away and giving great field position to the opposition. So I think you could look at it one of two ways. Some of these sacks are avoidable. He can throw the football away. He doesn't have to run around for 15 seconds and then get sacked, or he doesn't have to try to make something happen on every single snap and take sacks and lose 11 yards on 1st and 10, or lose 9 yards on 2nd and 9. He doesn't have to do that all the time. There's times where it's unavoidable, and these things happen. But this guy, in his last 3 years at Pitt, was sacked 74 times. To give you a reference point, Trevor Lawrence, in his 3 years as a starter at Clemson, was only sacked 33 times. And Zach Wilson at BYU, who was taken last year in the draft as well, he was a 3-year starter at BYU. He was only sacked 48 times in 3 years. So 74 times in the last 3 years and 110 for his career. These are astronomical numbers. So to me, some of these sacks can be avoided. And we all know the avoidable sacks and what they look like. Some of these, you can't get away. There's instant pressure. You try to bail, you turn around, the guy's waiting on you. These are sacks that are inevitable. But there are times where he runs around, tries to avoid 2 dudes, gets outside the pocket, tries to avoid a 3rd and gets sacked instead of throwing the football away. So he can avoid some of these sacks. And at the next level, where it is paramount that if you're in field goal range or you're scoring position, you don't take a sack, he's going to have to learn to be better in that regard. Ball security. I talk about taking all these sacks. There are a couple of times where I don't think he has the awareness in the pocket that someone's coming. He doesn't have that spidey sense that you want your quarterback to have. Like, I know somebody's around. The neck hairs are standing up, and I know somebody's around. I need to either protect the football or I need to get out of here. There are times where he's just oblivious to the pressure. That can be a good thing when you want your guy staring down the field and making a play in the face of pressure. That can be a bad thing when the pocket is collapsing or pressure is coming and he doesn't know it and he gets hit and the ball comes out. And I saw that quite a bit on film. This is a guy that had 26 fumbles in his career. 10 of them were lost. That 26 number is huge. That's a big number. The 10, not so much. That's still more than you would like. But in a 5-year stretch, 2 fumbles per year isn't going to kill you. The fumble, the 26 over a 5-year span is the number that is astronomical. That's 5 fumbles per year. And you might have gotten 16 of them back, but that's the lucky draw of the bounce. What if they bounce in the opposite direction and that number instead of 10 is 18 or 20? So he can't continue to fumble the football. He's got to protect the football. Even when he's running, as a runner, I've seen him put the ball on the carpet. He's got to do a better job of protecting the football as a runner or in the pocket when he gets hit. And then the last con is also something that we could look at as a pro. The 1-year wonder thing is something that people are going to bring up. It is inevitable. You cannot avoid it. Kenny Pickett had a 2021 season out of this world. Where was this in 2020? Where was this in 2019? Where was this in 2018? Why did it only happen in 2021? Again, I think some of that was the continuity between him and his offensive coordinator, Mark Whipple. I think the game started to slow down for him. The more experience that he had, the better he became at dissecting what defenses were trying to do to him and knowing where to go with the football. I think he had better talent around him in 2021. He had a freshman tight end that was outstanding. He had a couple of weapons to get it to at the receiver position. Really 3, had a solid running back. So I think the weapons around him, he had 2 really good tight ends, as a matter of fact, a freshman and then a transfer from Alabama. So the talent around him was better, but at the end of the day, that's a huge leap. And it's a good thing if you ask me. I don't think it's a con, but people are going to want to know, well, where was this in 2020? Where was this in 2019 and 18? But you can say the same thing for Joe Burrow, right? Like, okay, you got beat out by Dwayne Haskins. You got beat out by, such and such. And so, you had to transfer. And that first year at LSU wasn't all great. And then the explosion of 2019, where did that come from? If you're capable of that, that bodes well for you at the next level. And so that's how I feel about Kenny Pickett. So that takes us to our final comp. And for me, Kenny Pickett reminds me of David Carr. And I told you, when I do NFL comps, it's the first person I think of, the first player I think of when I'm watching this guy. And, after I think of that player, then I go and compare size, athleticism, stats from college, and all of those things. But the first thing is just the eye test, even down to the jersey number. And I that didn't dawn on me when I thought of Derek Carr. I didn't think of it because he wore number 8, but even down to the jersey number, they are eerily similar. Both are 6'3", both are right around 220 pounds. Both have kind of the same throwing motion. Carr held the ball up really high. He had those high ball mechanics, but the throwing motion looked similar. They're both tremendous athletes. I think a lot of people forget just how good of an athlete David Carr was coming out of Fresno State. He ran a 4.67. I think if Kenny Pickett runs a 40, he's going to run a 4.6 something, 4.63, 4.64, something like that. And then go look at David Carr's last year at Fresno State. Look at Kenny Pickett's numbers. They're eerily similar. I just see a lot of the same characteristics and traits. David Carr took a lot of sacks. Some of them his fault, some of them not his fault when he got to the Texans. That's the thing I worry about with Kenny Pickett. That's the thing that destroyed David Carr, is he just got beat up behind that line in Houston. He took a bunch of sacks, and it really diminished his confidence, and he became less of a player. The guy could play football when he got into the league. If Kenny Pickett lands in the right situation behind an offensive line, he's able to learn, he's able to grow, he doesn't take a beating. He has a chance to flourish in the way in which David Carr never did have an opportunity in Houston. And with the expansion franchise, they weren't ready for the number 1 overall pick to come in there and save them. They didn't have a roster that was built to protect him, especially on the offensive line, and he suffered because of it. Kenny Pickett is going to, I think, have a better situation, we hope, and I think he can really be what David Carr was supposed to be. We'll see. But that is my NFL comp. I see Kenny Pickett as a top 15 pick in the draft. We'll see where he goes. There are a lot of teams that are going to be interested. Kenny Pickett, I think, will be the first quarterback off the board in the 2022 NFL draft. So that's going to do it for Draft Prospects 101 series. Kenny Pickett at the quarterback position. Stay tuned for many more of these. We'll go through the rest of these quarterbacks, and then we'll switch gears and go to a different position. In the meantime, you guys, thank you for watching. If you're new to this channel, subscribe for more great content. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And I will see you guys next time on the Draft Prospects 101 series. Have a good one.
LouieTeeNetwork.